Welcome to Diversity Conversations, where we engage in thought-provoking dialogue to identify leadership solutions to today's most challenging conflicts. Stream live each week, Saturday 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. Hosted by Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Strategist and CEOs Eric Ellis and Tommy Lewis. Join us and add your voice to this engaging diversity conversation.
Good morning, Greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, the United States, and the world. My name is Eric Ellis, and I'm the president and CEO of Integrity Development Corporation. And I'm so excited to be joining you today as your host of Diversity Conversations. Now, Tommy Lewis, my co-host, he is working in the airport to try to join us. He's in Colorado doing some work there and got him some new earbuds, I think, and he may be joining us at some point throughout this conversation, but I'm going to start with it. And I'm just really delighted to be able to have the conversation. This week has been another exciting week. I love the work that we do. I'm excited to be in the field that I'm working in, diversity, equity, and inclusion, because the world seems like it's on fire. And so today, I want us to talk a bit about some of the current issues that are occurring around us. And I'll talk a bit about those. And then I certainly want you, the community, to weigh in, because I think it's important for us to look at what we're hearing on a regular basis in the news, ask ourselves, why are we hearing those things? Look at our own perspective about those things, but then sort of, take a higher look at what causes conflict in some of these conversations, and are there different ways to explore these issues so that we don't have to always find ourselves sort of mired down in conflict with one another. The first thing I want to talk about is, for those of you that are sports fans, the Celtics Warriors final series, game one, was a showstopper. I mean, my goodness, man, for those of us that love basketball, we were watching this game, and I've kind of pulling for the Celtics a bit right now. I love Stephen Curry and the Smash Brothers and a lot of young talent that they have over there on the Warriors side. And so Steph Curry had 21 points in the first quarter, set an NBA record. And so they went on to have, the game at halftime was a couple points ahead. And then in the third quarter, the Warriors they showed up. I mean, they had a 12-point lead. And for many of us, we had begun to think that it's a foregone conclusion now that they're going to go ahead and wrap this up. But I guess Boston didn't read the same scouting report, man, and they came out of nowhere. Tommy, I think Tommy Lewis is with us. Let's go and bring him to the stage. Tommy, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, Eric. How are you?
Outstanding, man. Outstanding. So glad that you are working to make sure that the community doesn't have to miss you so often. Tell us where you're at.
So for the last 18 hours, I've been in this Dallas airport and just hanging out and wanting to get home. And I'm unable to fly back to Cincinnati. I have to fly to another state and drive to Cincinnati. And so I'm speaking. I'm trying to not disturb all the other guests around me. I'll be boarding this plane in about 30 minutes. But I had to scramble to get some connection to be with the community this morning. But it's a beautiful Saturday morning.
Attention, please.
Outstanding. Well, you're going to provide some additional entertainment for us as we hear the background, where you are, but so glad to have you with us. I was talking about that Celtics Warriors game, man. What did you think about game one?
No, I thought it was an interesting game whereby I think that they played the game, first of all, for the first time in San Francisco. And that's different. And I think that throughout the course of the game, both teams were filling each other out. Obviously, Golden State had been in the finals before. They were old hat. They may have taken some things for granted. And, toward the end of the game, 4 minutes, 5 minutes left. I think that the crowd, as well as the team, said, we got this. And the Celtics said, hold on, we deserve to be here as well. Pay attention to us. It was a good game.
Right.
Different
players in the finals as well. This Boston team's a young team. They're enthusiastic. I love that kid, Smart. I actually just got introduced to him here in the playoffs because I haven't been following basketball as much, but just love the energy that he brings to the game, and that's been impressive. One of the other things that's happening for us is we are going to be doing some work with the NBA. So I've been asked to speak to all of the DEI leaders for every NBA basketball team and their HR leaders. I'll be speaking to them around sort of a sense of belonging. I'll be doing two different sessions. One is on creating a sense of belonging, and the other is on allyship. As you know, a lot of these sports teams are being asked to do more in this space because there's so much diversity in the talent that oftentimes they're taking advantage of, but they're not always creating the right kind of culture that's diverse, equitable, inclusive. And as I was preparing for an initial conversation, Tommy, I was impressed by some of the things that Major League sports are doing in the space of data. And so Major League Baseball has been looking at stats and data for a long time, but basketball has also, and football as well, have also begun to now depend on a lot more on data to help them make decisions around how they play the game. In basketball, it's changed where people are shooting the basketball from. We see a lot more people shooting three-pointers now because the stats show that if you shoot more three-pointers, you increase the probability of winning the game. I was listening to Shane Battier talk about, trying to guard Kobe Bryant. He said that was always a difficult task. He said, but that was a task that was made a little easier if you knew Kobe Bryant's stats in terms of where he scored the most from, what was his go-to moves, and what was the shots that if he took that, the research shows him as having a lower probability of making those. He said, so when you match up your strengths and then try to push him to his weaknesses, that increases the probability that you may have success. I say all of that because, Tommy, I think it's so important for us to look at, for these institutions, organizations that are looking at the use of data as a way of winning. Maybe there's an opportunity for them to look at data around DE&I and around creating the right kind of culture and what it might do in terms of winning and creating that sort of winning culture. Any thought?
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity, Eric, not only for you and the NBA, but also, as we know, the NBA has changed over the last 30, 40, 50 years easily. What we're seeing today is not what we saw in the 70s. It's not what we saw in the 80s. Not only from the way of a team culture and the organizational culture of the NBA, but also its fan base, also its recruiting with front office personnel as well as those on the basketball court. Some may say, by jumping to a conclusion, that the people, the talent on the court is the same, but it's not. It's not. It's a different game. So I'm excited to know that we do have the traditional dimensions of diversity, race, gender, etc. But there are some other business imperatives that DE&I can bring value to. And I'm glad you're a part of it as well.
Yeah, so I'll keep you posted on that, man, as that unfolds. One of the things that I wanted to do today was to have us take some time to explore some of the sort of current issues that are in the media and to take a look at those, to maybe talk about our perspective around those, but then to talk about what are some of the kinds of things that create challenges in our dialogue around these. And I want to start with sort of mass shootings, because we've all now been seeing this over the last few weeks. Uvalde, the elementary school where the gunman came in and killed 19 students, 2 teachers. Buffalo, the racially motivated shootings of Black, customers 8 out of 10 were Black, African American, racially motivated killings there. Tulsa, gunman went into the hospital looking for his doctor so he could kill her and anybody that got in his way. Tommy, what's happening, man, that's driving up so much of this violence and mass shootings? And I think the question is, do we have any answers to this?
And very tough question. And as I look around this airport here at the terminal, there's a very, very diverse group of folks. People are traveling to go to their own destinations. There's some frustration with myself as well, being here for such a long time. And that's just in the last 24 hours, the frustration. I can only imagine, Eric, over the last 20, 30, 40 years, more particularly the last 2.5 to 3 years, there are an increased number of people who are frustrated. I wouldn't say mentally ill, I won't go there yet, but they are frustrated and angered to the point of access to deadly weapons results to the articulation of that anger. And it doesn't matter who and where that anger is articulated, it's just coming out in an explosive manner more regularly because of media, we're able to capture it, as well as more regularly because of that literally people are seeing hope and articulating their anger in a violent way. They see hope.
Stand by passenger Scalio.
Right. I'll tell you, Tommy. And the thing is, we are now seeing the ineptness of our government because we really don't have any hope of our government coming up with any solutions here. I mean, it's pathetic where we are right now. And I'd say it's pathetic on all sides, man. It's just pathetic. They've thrown in the towel, tossed up their hands. And I'll tell you, man, some of the things that they're suggesting are just disappointing to me. I mean, if we look at Uvalde, I've cried over that situation, man. You know, I listened to the one officer who lost his daughter in the school, and he was just crying and torn up, man. And I was right there with him because as a father, man, when I think about these kids, and I'll tell you that, you know, as more information comes out and we hear that the chief that was on the scene there had ordered his officers to really stand down for an hour. Now we're hearing that he didn't have a radio and maybe he didn't even know all of the detail, but kids were calling 911, man, and almost saying, come in and help us. And nobody took an action, and 19 kids get killed and 2 teachers. And it's just, it's painful to see that. And yet I would say to you that, you know, I'll give it one example of a response that to me is just pathetic is I think we're passing some legislation in this state that will allow teachers to maybe be armed. And I'm concerned about that, Tommy, because I think that teachers have so much on their plate to do, man. The last thing they should be trying to do is arm themselves. And, you know, I got no problem with weapons. I have no problem with the Second Amendment, you know, but my concern is that I actually think, because we know that most gun owners never shoot the burglar coming in the house. So very seldom do we shoot the burglar. Usually we shoot each other. Accidents, our kids are getting shot. Come on now. And so my concern about arming educators, man, is that I think that there's more opportunity for students maybe to even be shot, you know, because all kinds of things happen in schools, man, where, you know, students get unruly, you know, and the first student that gets shot by their teacher, what are we going to do with that? And then, you know, I mean, putting teachers under, I mean, we're seeing that police officers oftentimes in these situations, Tommy, are not running to the fight. You know, you get somebody with a long gun that's coming in there, man. Shoot, ain't nobody trying to run up on that. And so now we're trying to, I don't know, Tommy, but it's just, it's frustrating to me that we don't have any real answers to this. And I know that it's not simply just trying to regulate the gun I think that we as a country, I wish we were less fascinated by guns. There is a direct correlation between having a whole lot of guns out there and a whole lot of shootings happening. But maybe that horse is already out the barn, so I don't know.
I would say this, Eric, and unfortunately, it's getting very, very busy here in the terminal. And I don't want to be distracted. I'll listen, but I may have to transition a little bit earlier than expected.
Right.
But last year, our organization, we worked with maybe 8 to 10 school districts in the Midwest area region. And as we were working with these school districts and teaching staff, we were asking them through a survey instrument if they prefer to have firearms. We have some data, again, a small pool of schools, but we're looking at around 90%, 95% of the surveyed teachers said
Messenger,
no
Miller,
firearms in school.
Right. Yeah, that's there's a higher risk in those buildings. I think we have to make sure that we are putting together all the things that lock the doors, don't let strangers come in. I think we got to depend on those kind of solutions, because I don't think that we have a viable answer. I think, I was talking this over with Judy and my wife, and she was saying that it really is a matter of more empathy. In other words, we as a society have got to be more tuned in to what's happening in the lives and in the minds of people. That's one of the places that we're going to have to sort of be more vigilant. I think about this guy that goes into the hospital looking for a doctor that botched the surgery that, and I mean, really? I mean, you're going through the hospital looking for the doctor and find her and kill her and kill another doctor and kill the assistant, kill yourself. I do believe, Tommy, that we are under a lot of stress in this society. Mental health is an issue. PTSD as a result of COVID, all of that. We're just going through a lot, man. And I think that we've got to find ways of loving people, of identifying when people are struggling and in pain, because a lot of these tragedies, some of them are being metered out by kids. I think in a couple of those shootings, it was 18-year-olds that are out there killing folks. I mean, in Buffalo, that just racial rant, just going into a store and just killing people because of the color of their skin. Tommy, how should we even be? So how is it that we go from the pain and the tragedy of these situations to arguing about weapons and guns and things like that?
So Eric, again, with this kind of seems like a decades-long debate around the Second Amendment from the Constitution, where our country was different than it is today with regards to that Second Amendment. And I'm okay with it as well. But we were battling against some other tyranny during those times. We don't even talk about tyranny in 2022, things like that. We don't talk about Europe, trying to take us back into their fold. We don't talk about those things. We're not talking about how we were just usurping the indigenous natives of this country and needing to have firearms to steal what we were doing. So again, as we look at the Second Amendment from centuries, millennia ago, it's still relative today. However, we have more people with more stress, with more of everything. And our government, for the most part, which are led by people, are acquiescing to whatever their interests
Mr.
are.
Sullivan, please come up for boarding.
Right. Excellent insight. And then the other current issues that we are seeing in the media. Certainly, President Biden has been in the media a lot. I think we've thrown all the recession at his feet, and the baby formula. How devastating is that, man? That so many young families, mothers are not able to find milk for their children. I mean, that's just catastrophic, tragic. High gas prices. What's the right conversation that we should be having there, Tommy? And why is it that we are so ill-equipped to see the complexities of these things, man? And we just see them, it seems like, as opportunities to just argue our point and sort of down the other team.
So, Eric, I'll share this and then I'll drop off and look forward to joining the show next Saturday. So, when we talk about the baby food issue, that's supply chain. And the supply chain has been what it is for a while. But I would tell you that some of this is around greed and lack of insight and foresight. And what I believe is that when we look at the ecosystem of how we as human beings in this country particularly have to live from infancy to elderly age and senior citizen, we're really our government and its operations focuses on the little dash in between, the small 50 or 55 years. We don't really focus on those first 10 years, definitely not the first 6 months, right? I'm talking about focus. And we're not focusing on those last 10 years of one's life. Other countries, they do. They take
Right.
care of their elderly, right? They invest in their elderly, such that they don't have to pay for health care, things like that. They invest in their newborns, their population, such that they don't have to do it. What happened here was a company who has the infrastructure to create the product was bumped up against a government policy that was based
At
on
this
check
time,
box.
we invite passengers in group one.
Right. I appreciate that, Tommy. And so what we're looking at is just some of these issues that we're all seeing in the media. And I think that you and I, our show is Diversity Conversations. So we want to talk about the issues, but we also want to help people as we start thinking about these issues. And if I go back to President Biden, when President Trump was our president, I didn't vote for him, but I can't suggest that everything he did was horrible. There were some things that he did that were very positive and that were helpful in terms of strengthening our economy. A lot of what happens with the economy is outside the control of any president. And so, Biden couldn't take credit for if things were going great. He doesn't get all the blame if it's not going great. Trump couldn't take credit for all the things that went well, but he couldn't be blamed for all the things that went bad. We want to put all division at the feet of Donald Trump, but that's not true. We are a nation that has been less divided than we're told we are, but that's because people that are making money out of garnering people's attention have determined that it's easier to get people's attention through the negative. And so that's why we get negativity in news and we get negativity in our politicians. But I think that we have to commit ourselves to being more robust thinkers as we're looking at these issues. I look at this Johnny Depp trial and Amber Heard, his former wife. Don't know if you have any thoughts on that. As I looked at that, the way that, Johnny Depp brought a defamation suit against Amber Heard because she put an article in the Washington Post or something like that, where she really alluded to being a survival of domestic violence. And he says that hurt his career. And so he took her to court, sued her for, $50 million. And then she turned around and countersued him for $100 million. And then we all sort of watched this circus event happen in front of us. And so just recently, the jury made a decision basically in favor of Johnny Depp, where they awarded him $15 million. She was awarded $2 million. What are your thoughts about that? I know she made a comment that she believes that, she let women down by losing this case. What are your thoughts?
Initially, I don't think she let women down from losing this case at all. That's a gross generalization of her particular situation. In fact, I would go as far to say that with this
Place number
situation,
boarding groups 1 through 4, your gate number
to
21.
of millions and millions of dollars of defamation based on a tweet or a message that could impact someone's career, this is very small. This is a very small percentage. Whereby, if someone were to do the same to me, it would not go viral, it wouldn't go global, and it wouldn't impact me significantly from a financial perspective. And so, therefore, it wouldn't be a generalization of, whatever type of people. The second thing is,
Place number again, we're boarding
I think
groups
that-
1, 2, 3,
and I'll
and 4. If
transition
you don't
this, so
have
this-
that,
this-
please
this
be
little
courteous to
bit
the ones that are boarding, step by the line, wait for your groups, take a look at your tickets. We have a
I
very
think that
easy
there's
boarding
an
process by
opportunity
numbers.
to look at
If you don't have a number, it's going to be group 7 when you board.
and how money and power can be used against a person. So the power of the voice, and looking at the money that I can put behind either ruining someone's career, or if I am participating in or exacting domestic violence in my home, how does that play out with regards to power and influence? I will stop there, Eric, and say thank you this morning again. I look forward to next Saturday. It's a little busy. I don't want to be too disrespectful to the audience as well.
Thank you, Tommy, man. I appreciate you making time for us, and travel safely, and we'll see you next week. Awesome. And so I'll say to the community, I want to talk just a little bit more about the Johnny Depp trial. And I didn't watch it closely enough to really give you a full reading of it. I did watch several excerpts of it. And I would say that that the credibility of Amber Heard was really what ultimately, I think, swayed the jury. The jury made a decision that they believed, that they didn't believe Amber Heard. They knew that both of them had challenges. They had their counselor was on and said that both of them had engaged in sort of dysfunctional, abuse in many ways to each other. I would say that the issue of domestic violence is much bigger than this case. It is a reality in this country that 1 out of 3 women experience domestic violence, and actually even 1 out of 4 men experience that in a relationship with a significant other. So this is something that is an issue for us as a nation. I do believe that it's just a fact that women are oftentimes less believed in the courts, and that they don't sometimes get the justice that they deserve. This case is complex, but I think that we have to be careful in our discussions about this, that no matter which way this case should have gone, that we don't miss the broader implications of what happens in relationships and some of the things that don't favor women in the courts. And I think that we all have to then be interested in that, knowledgeable about that, supportive of trying to equalize the balances of justice, because I think that this is a critical issue and one that we all should be interested in. The other issue that we see in the media is sort of the Russian-Ukrainian war that's taking place, the Russian invasion of Ukraine. One of the questions that I have for you all in the community is, are we turning our attention away from this? I mean, so much is happening in our country that it feels like, man, that's been put on the back burner a little bit. I think that we all collectively in this country kind of believe that it was wrong for Russia to go into Ukraine to try to just take over this sovereign nation. They now, according to the Ukrainian leaders, Russia is in control of about 20% of Ukraine. There are a lot of other issues that are being affected by what's happening in Ukraine right now. Ukraine and Russia are providers of wheat for a great part of the world. I know that African nations are right now desperately in need of that grain. Russia has blocked some of those ports. Russia's saying that if Ukraine will concede that, the eastern part of the nation to them, that they'll then open up those lines of travel. My question to you is that right? What should Ukraine do right now? Should they concede the 20% that, or does that validate or reward Russia for coming in as a hostile actor and killing thousands and thousands of innocent people based upon their desire to put back the old Soviet Union, if you will. It's just, these are complex issues that we're looking at. And for us, it's how do you know how to respond, how to react, what the truth is? How do we make sure that we avoid being trapped in our own silos and looking at any news event through one set of lenses? And our encouragement to you is that you have to ultimately become a diversity critical thinker, where you're able to look at, willing to try to be open-minded to get as much information as you can, so that we can make judgments, wise judgments around how we should be approaching these things. I want to look at the work that we do around DE&I. This is work that I've been doing now for 31 years, going into organizations, trying to help them create people-centered workplaces that are diverse, that are equitable, and that are inclusive. One of the questions that I was going to ask Tommy is, what are some of the top stressors that he sees regarding this work that we do? I think one of the stressors for me is being patient with people that sometimes are deniers or minimizers of some of the inequity that exists in the world around us. That sometimes can be frustrating. One of the things that I've decided to do in my work is to basically demonstrate empathy and love to everybody that's in front of me. Now, that's a different way to look at this. Some people think that we just have to keep challenging. We have to keep sort of pushing hard, with those in power. But what I've discovered is that people are struggling all over organizations, and that you're never going to basically get people, that you're talking to show empathy or to care about other folks when they have their own struggles. So my faith has said to me that one of the first things that we need to do is love people that are in front of us and demonstrate empathy for what they're challenged by. And what I've discovered is that when you show love and empathy toward people, it causes them to lower their defenses. And it causes them to be then more open to looking at themselves and some of their biases and some of the ways that they want to try to be supportive of others. But that's the way that I've chosen to attack this work. Other things that are sometimes frustrating in this work is when you get an audience and sometimes people will say, well, diversity is more than color. And my question is, why do people feel like they need to say that? But I think that sometimes they just get frustrated by the fact that they hear about race in the media all day long. And sometimes they're just exhausted. People feel like, man, I hear this so often. But when we say those kinds of things, it's almost like saying that this is more than gender. Well, that's theoretically and academically true, but in many ways, I'm sort of further victimizing women when I want to say something like this, that diversity is beyond gender. We do need to deal with the gender inequity that exists in the world. And so that's something that I think is real. People trying to validate token efforts can be something that's frustrating in the work that we do. And I just don't think that is sustainable. What I know is that those organizations that are truly committed to creating cultures that value people, those are the organizations that are going to be the most successful. And if an organization is just trying to cut corners and trying to get somebody to validate that they care about diversity, equity, inclusion when they don't, I think that that's something that will create additional challenge for them in the long haul. As we look around, I'd ask you, what are some of the organizations that you've identified or interacted with that you think really care deeply about being diverse, being equitable, being inclusive? Who are some of the organizations that are at the forefront in this work? And when we look at that, I think that certainly some of our sports teams are doing some good things. Certainly the military, some aspects of the military are doing a good job. Education, there's some schools that are doing a good job in this space. There are some nonprofits that are really, trying to be leaders in this space. It feels like that organizations need pressure before they begin to, really decide that this is something that they want to excel at. One of the places that we would hope that we would find some leadership around diversity and equity and inclusion is the ecumenical community. And my question to you is, how is the church doing as it relates to diversity, respect, empathy? Where is the church at this point that we're living in right now? In many ways, it feels like the church is silent, or the church has sometimes gotten caught up so much in these political arguments that it's lost its foundational focus. My faith, my belief is in Christ, and that Christ is to be my example, and that I'm supposed to love my neighbor. And I think that if we're not careful, we've lost that. I know that in the work that I do, that I'd rather leave a message of love with somebody than even them try to fully understand the value of human differences or equity or inclusion. For me, none of that is as important as me demonstrating my love to them. I would say to you that if I looked at my superpower in the work that I do, I've been doing this work around diversity, equity, inclusion for 31 years. But my real superpower is loving everybody that's in front of me. I mean, I really do. I like people that are sometimes bigots. I just have fun with people because I see that in my own family as well. And so I think that sometimes if we say our faith is important to us, then we should be able to lead with that as well. Today is a beautifully sunny day. And here's what I'm going to say to you, community. I'm going to, like some of my best teachers when I was in school, they would see a sunny day and they'd just say, okay, we canceling class and we're going out to have recess for the rest of the afternoon. Man, I used to love that. So that's what I'm going to do this morning, is say to you, I thank you for joining us this morning. Tommy's going to be back with us next week. I'm going to give you the rest of the hour off to go outside, enjoy the sun, and think about what are some things that you can do to make this world around us a better place. We can't find ourselves perpetually caught up in conflict and negativity. On days like this, don't let that TV or anything like that trap you on the inside of your house. Get outside, enjoy the sun, go to a park, enjoy the trees and the green grass and all the great things that God has created. And we'll see you next week. Take care.